Good afternoon, everybody. Morning, evening, daytime, wherever time zone you are. DMGeezerjim here, back for another classic content review. Kind of picking up on my GAZ4 series, picking up from the Mystara content. We are looking at GAZ4. GAZ4 number 4, published by Dungeons and Dragons, the official game accessory for BECMI. That would be Basic Expert, Companion, Master, and Immortal rule set, known nowadays as OGL, OSR, Old School Rules, Old School, whatever. OSL, that's right. OSR, my bad. Same rule set. Mystara, what is Mystara? Give me a second, and I'm going to give us a map. Mystara here. Mystara was the unification of the various territories that were published during the BECMI days, and then were then released in a series of, 14, 15 gazetteers. Each of the gazetteers covered a particular geographic region that we're looking on this map. The first one, GAZ1, was Carmakos. Second one we did was Emirates of Yalarum. Third one we did was where are we at here? Galantry. Principalities of Galantry. And we are doing number 4 today. Number 4 is going to be, is going to be the Kingdom of Ierendi. Where is the Kingdom of Ierendi, and what is the Kingdom of Ierendi? First and foremost, it is a southern kingdom, an island collection of an island nation state, as it were. Several of these little islands. First and foremost, I do got to give credit for this map to Thorfinn Tate, published and updated through 2020. Hats off, great work, beautiful piece of art. If you're into Mystara at all, Hollow World, anything else, to go check out his site. Excellent source for both world maps and regional maps, going from 24 hex down to 24 miles to hex to 8 miles a hex. Wonderful resource. Anyway, they are accurate to the produced maps in the series. Kingdom of Ierendi, real quick. We're just going to do a nice quick scan of the actual product, and then we'll get into an in-depth review of the content. The Castle of Ierendi is listed here. It's a nice, useful map of any sort of generic castle. The Honor Island is shown. The Kingdom of Ierendi is detailed in relation to the other locations that are given. We have our typical timeline. Lots of stuff about people. We'll get into the people, places, and things in a little bit more detail. As was becoming typical for the Gazetteer series, there's a middle section that was designed as a pullout. Some of it was an extra rule set, others are player information that continued along with this product. With the Kingdom of Ierendi GAZ4, there's also a pull-out section designed with this module. Blue pages are common material. You feel free to share it with your players as well. In this instance, it also gave us a rule set for large-scale naval combat. We'll get into that shortly. A couple adventure locations, details on each of the islands, so on and so forth. Again, we'll talk about those in detail. The older edition was a pretty large sealed packet. You had your book in it, 60-page book, a couple poster maps, and then a set of maps encounters that were provided to handle large-scale naval combat in the companion and master level of the game. This expansion actually adds a significant some rules for a rule supplement for BECMI. In addition to that, you get some good poster maps of the cities, some small little battle maps. So the product was you got your money's worth out of it on its purchase. I'm using the products digitally now, just for ease of use, ease of access, and all. So let's get into the specifics now. What is the Kingdom of Ierendi? The Kingdom of Ierendi, in this is going to be a very editorial comment, but it is a theme park, Disneyland-esque Dungeons and Dragons setting, but it's more than that. Historically, the Kingdom of Ierendi was started as a penal colony. Depending on the history you go through, whether it was people that were sent from the 5 Shires to float in the islands forevermore, the Empire of Thaiatis, which also included the Grand Duchy back then, was sending their people off in the Minrothan guilds and the Kingdom of Ierendi at that time. Think Australian prison colonies, for lack of a better term, if you need a contemporary example. So the pirates, the prisoners, the colonists, the refugees, the exiles, whatever you want to call them, eventually settled across the islands and, married and formed families with the natives, and you have the Kingdom of Ierendi. Initially, it was the forces of the Five Shires tried meagerly to claim them, were rebuffed pretty soundly. Thyatus sent in another group, rebuffed soundly. The Kingdom of Ierendi was recognized as an independent nation at that point. They have an on-again, off-again war going on with the Minrothid guilds to the east of them, but they have the aid of the mages at Honor Island. The major islands outside of White and Honor, each of these, Royster Islands, Elegy, Ierendi, Safari, Utter, Fletcher, Alcove, have a theme to them. The themes are presented in gameplay mechanics as far as gameplay mechanics in a game show-esque, maybe tournament, fake amusement park type of a thing. It's really difficult to describe. The product itself and its presentation was very unusual. I'm gonna be upfront on that. The content is still D&D. Let's make no mistake about it. You'll still get a lot of useful information. You'll be able to add the Kingdom of Ierendi into the Mystara campaign if you're using that world as whatever your edition is. This adds a lot to the world and adds a lot in regards to Ierendi. The presentation of it is a little bit wonky. You're going to have to do a little bit of reading between the lines, ignoring some of the the presentation of it. So you have the founding of Ierendi according to legend, which is both local legend and surrounding legend. And then you have the real history, which is also given. Both forms are pretty accurate. The product is consistent with all of the other gazetteers in regards to containing a timeline from 3000 before crowning to 1200 after crowning. That's one thing I do appreciate about all of the gazetteers. They are consistent in regards to their timeline. You don't have to worry about a 200 to 150 year to a 500 year gap between your products. You're good to go in regards to your timeline. So quickly we get into the geography. The geology and the topography tells you about the square mileage, so on and so forth. Volcanic activity. What is the climate like? Is it hot? Is it cold? Ierendi is going to be a subtropical to tropical swampland volcanic island chain. Talks about coastal beaches being nice and pretty, the southern style, native flora and fauna. Here you get into your cultural. If you're into making a difference in presentation of your non-player characters based on styles of dress. Different regions have different styles of dress, different colors, whatever. That information is given here as well. Some DMs like to use that to add flavor. You're traveling. People should be dressed different from one place to another. Now, there's also speaking about the mermen. There's a merman colony going on in here. You have plant life listed. Mammals, reptiles, birds, marine life, insects. Now, first and foremost, despite the fact that it's a volcanic island kingdom, it's very well settled. The Kingdom of Ierendi is very settled. It's pretty tame. There's not a whole hell of a lot of random dungeons and castles and bad guys running around that you would expect. It's a relatively tame island. I think that's what the writer leaned into when they were producing it. As far as this is people have been here for a long time. The small island. There's not a whole hell of a lot that hasn't been discovered. But it's an ideal kind of an ideal climate, the Caribbean type of a lifestyle, So in order to give a dungeon master and a group a reason to be there, they include these amusement park style events. You can go rescue a child from a wandering hill giant. It's just tricks and magic and all of that. Damage is all fake. There's no, it's interesting. We'll get into that as we go. The Adventurers Club is a large part of it. The government of Ierendi is technically a monarchy supported by the tribunal. The monarch, the king and queen are chosen annually in a tournament of champions, referring back to the Adventurers Club and all the mini games that go on in Ierendi. If you're a successful adventurer and you spend several months uh, building your reputation up and spending money and completing the challenges across the islands, then you get put into the election for king or queen. So if you've been the most successful, then you're automatically king or queen. Technically, you're the ruler of the kingdom for that year, and queens are allowed to go from there. So this is kind of put in there as a nod to the companion level, the 20-ish level that existed in Beckme. At that point, your player character should have been settling down. They should have some land, a title of some sort, working on a keep, doing something with all of that hard-earned money and connections that they've made over 20 levels of adventuring. This is, I believe, a nod to the companion level as far as your players can become involved in the politics and rulership of Ierendi as well through adventuring means. The laws are kind of loose and far between. The economy is given. Again, I enjoy, similar to the rest of the gazetteers, you get the coinage given in local terms. You know, a platinum is a poly, Gelava, Sana, Copi, C-O-K-I-P, Sakip, maybe? Whatever. More tools to allow you for immersion. More tools for you to allow you as a dungeon master to discern the Kingdom of Ierendi as something different than Carmacos, something different than Yalarum. Instead of all of these just being one big map, these are a collection of different peoples, a collection of different nations, and a collection of different cultures and terminologies. I encourage you to lean into that when you're doing, whether you're playing in Mystara or whether you're playing whatever. If your party's doing a lot of traveling, you know, find the tools, find the resources that help you differentiate Cormyr from Commanther. What's the difference between and Kalimshan? So that's something that's good about the Gazetteers. It gives it to you. That's lacking in 5th edition products. That's something that we don't really see a whole hell of a lot of anymore. So whether you're an old DM looking at this stuff going, I remember that, or you're a new DM looking for additional setting stuff for your system, this has a lot of location and geographic specific flavor. All of the Gazetteers do. That's a huge plus about all of them. So it talks about basic employments for character classes. If you know your characters are coming in here, you're using this for a campaign setting. What are they doing? The Kingdom of Ierendi is pretty. There's no Isle of Dread to go try to find in the middle of the kingdom. You can jump off here, go to the Isle of Dread. There's no keep on the borderlands around here. Palace of the Silver Princess is just a tourist attraction. What are you gonna do to keep your party busy here? Well, that's where the employment table kind of comes in. And one of the plus sides, if you do pick up this product, as we scroll through it, anytime you see this boxed text here, I'm going to go ahead and scroll into it. This is the adventure ideas and this is the adventure hooks that are given to us as dungeon masters to incorporate the ideas, the cultures, the theories, the stories, the lore of Ierendi into our adventures. You're not going to get big, long, winding adventures like you would in some of the other ones. For example, the not the Duchy Carmacos, Glantry. There's a basically a module given in that to get your people into the city of Glantry and immersed and involved in the mages guilds that are going on there. That's missing here. You don't get any large structured plots to introduce the world to your players. Rather than that, you're given information to give them in exposition as they travel it, and smaller, short little adventure ideas that you're responsible for fleshing out. Now, I don't think they're a big ask. I mean, for example, this one, and one plus about this is it tells you Adventure the Purloin Tablet Expert. What does that tell me as a dungeon master? I know that's for your mid-tier. That's for your level 4 plus, level 5 plus can handle this, should have the resources and the knowledge to be able to handle this type of an adventure. They've got to go into the Macaulay crater past the custom stations and patrols. Inside the crater, they find a lava tunnel that will lead from the inner rim out to the sea, 25 miles distant. Okay, so automatically you're sitting here looking at managing a 25-mile long underground tunnel. That opens up all kinds. It could just be a single lava flow. It could be a bunch of caverns. Up to you as a dungeon master to decide. You can turn it from a short adventure to a big adventure. These little boxes are just giving us framework to work within to introduce sections of Ierendi to our party. Okay. Architecture is given, so you can again add some depth, some context, and some color to the different various regions. Most of the buildings built are constructed in a similar fashion. Plain white exterior where there be wood or other material, and two columns flanking the entryway. Just kind of a standard look. Use these tools, man. Flesh out the world. You've got the customs. You can, depending on how much or how little you role play and use dialogue and interaction with your players and the world around them, customs can matter when you're moving in and out. Religion, you'll have to. This is Mystara, so if you're adapting this to 5th edition Forgotten Realms, you can substitute that pantheon. One note on that before I go too far. While all of these gazetteers provide really good information, I have to be upfront. They are built to work in the world of Mystara. They are built to work within Beckme. Most of the information you read does not translate very well to 5th edition. The individual adventures, the modules, X1, X4, X5, B3, CM4, those are really good modules that can adapt to any system, but the world itself is structured around Beckme. So if you're going to use this as a setting for 5th edition play or any edition other than Beckme, be prepared to make some changes. Which is sad because, man, it's a gorgeous world. The map is a lot of fun. It's easy to read. It's easy to navigate. It's well populated, but there's a lot of wild borderland areas. Mystara is a great place to play around, and there's a lot of content available for it. So that's the caveat. That's the disclaimer I want to make when we are looking at the gazetteers. It is not for modern Dungeons and Dragons. You'll have to do a little bit of work. But if you're looking for a new world to play around in, you don't want to feel tied down to the Forgotten Realms, you want to play an old high fantasy style, take a look at Mystara. There's a library's worth of information. So we talk about the religion, and then these adventures here kind of give you a little bit of information about the religion, how to incorporate, how to introduce your party to the one religious theology that belongs here. The natives have one belief. The colonists and the foreigners bring their deities with them. They all interact with each other. Pirate treasure maps can be found here. And then we get directly into each of the islands as themselves. Ierendi Island, you get a population count, overall square mile, 39,200 people living on this island. 39,000 people is a lot in Dungeons and Dragons terms, if you think about it, or it can be little. That depends on your world. It's nice to have that information ultimately is what I'm leaning towards. It helps you decide how dense is this population, how fleshed out is this area. Knowing how many people in a region helps you decide on pricing as well. It can influence your economics. There's only 100 people on this island. Shit's going to be expensive. No one's making it. You got to bring it all in. Your fuller islands, and for example, it says swells to 55,000 during peak tourist season. The capital city itself holds 30% of that population. The marketplace is spoken about. You get some of these little NPC pictures that you're given. These actually tie in with your short adventures. And some of the adventures are a lot of fun. They're kind of unique. They're easy one-shots, or they can be turned into short adventures, or at least beginning points for campaigns. Collections are given to the other gazetteers in regards to some of the, for example, Grantee has connections to GAZ4. Maybe if you need a tie-in between them, there you go. Some of the local attractions, some of the festivals, the stuff to let you as a dungeon master, again, remember, GAZ4, the Kingdom of Ierendi. Ierendi itself is a tourist attraction. Ierendi is a resort colony. So as it's presented, you need to be prepared to kind of lean into that. Whether your party is there on business or pleasure, they still need, you need, in my opinion, use this information to beat them over the heads and the shoulders of it. They're getting off the plane. Think about that silly scene at the beginning of the Fifth Element when they get on the ship and there's just this alien, holy crap, everyone's singing and throwing flowers and putting leis, and have that for the arrival when your party gets here. Use this kind of stuff to throw them off balance, even if they're here for business. So they're here for pleasure, make sure they know they're here for pleasure. Read into here. It gives you ideas on what they can eat, what's available, the different festivals, the different parties, the style of dress that can go on to it. A few non-player characters. This book is a little lighter on non-player characters than most in comparison to, for example, I want to say the GAZ4 and 2 and 3, Emirates of Yularum, and honestly 3, the one up in the wizard one, completely Glantry. That one's half non-player character because the people are the thing here. This one, the non-player characters, a few of them are mentioned. Most of everything that's involved is kind of abstracted. You're given a lot of space to bring non-player characters in and add them in. There's a few exceptions as we go through. We'll hit them. So there's job postings, adventure postings. Who's killing the greatest adventurers? The contest. So each of these little boxes, you'll find places that you can turn into really fun adventures, or just even ideas. So we talk about the schools of Ierendi. Now this is where we have the break. We're now in the middle section of the book. This is what's different. The big break here is the addition to the game. One thing that the gazetteers are really good about is introducing a new facet to the BECMI system. Basic expert companion mortal, master and immortal is a complete system, but just like every other edition of Dungeons and Dragons, they want to add more, and they want to add more, whether it was marketing or just additional. It is what it is. The big addition here, because there was so much of an emphasis on the existence of a navy, the main thing that keeps the Kingdom of Ierendi safe are these gigantic steamships that Honor Island provides in conjunction with a few others. So there can be the chance for naval battles. If you're a companion level adventurer, you're running you're handling armies already. That was part of the system. You've got standing militaries. You're running patrols. So the context there is now we're running naval units in that. So the blue blocks here, the Navy system, the military, all of this. This was a subset of rules that are provided for the Dungeon Master to run large-scale naval combat in an efficient way during BECMI. I've kind of looked at them a little bit. It's probably adaptable to 5th edition if you're doing that, but it leaves your players out of it. That's one of the downsides of it. Your players are not really directly involved in the combat. So taking people that are used to being the hero of the moment that can single-handedly go and kill everybody on a ship and putting them in a combat system that doesn't involve the players at all, but you're moving tokens and maneuvering ships and dealing with wind and windage and shifting and firing arcs. It's a sub game. It's a mini game within D&D. It's an extra set of rules that were given if you wanted to do that as part of your BECMI experience. Absolutely unnecessary for play in modern terms, but they're there if you want them. Now, bracketed within those rules, you see this cute little 4-page handout. This was what you would give your players. It talks about, this is the travel brochure. Gets them to come to Ierendi. Welcome to the land of paradise and enchantment. We hope your stay here is filled with fun and excitement, and we hope you return to see us. Keep this brochure and use it as a guide to the hot spots and top attractions of the island. And here there's a brief description given on the 10 main islands that are reflected on the map here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 over there. Lining up perfectly, describing each of the islands in just the briefest terms to intrigue or inform a tourist. Enough to make you want to go there, not enough to tell you anything about it, right? Okay. So the gazetteer continues on, covers each of the islands in more detail. Each of the 10 islands, you get the same thing as the first one. Overall population, what's the capital? What's the key to this one? Safari Island is a gigantic wilderness preserve. There's lots of animals and monsters here. You can't actually go in here without a guide. You're not here to kill stuff. You're here to see stuff. And in that case, Safari Island is well stocked. So, that can be an entertaining and challenging adventure for your party if they're supposed to be escorting some hobnob to go see a pyrohydra sitting out on Safari Island, but you can't kill it when it goes nuts. Fun little things like that, again. So you take your basic adventure idea and you skewer it ever so slightly because you're not in a real situation. You're in a real situation in which you can get your butt ate, something can eat you, but you're not allowed to just, kill it. You got to figure out another way to subdue, control, or otherwise deal with the situation. So Safari Island is a fun thing to play with in regards to the fact that you can actually incorporate a lot more of the monsters, a diverse cast of creatures into your adventures without without putting lethality in there. You follow what I'm saying? Still keep it in theme park-esque. Maybe there's an anti-magic show so they get to see it, but they don't get to interact. However you want it. But there is one thing that's given, an adventure park. There's a couple adventure parks. You can use a lot of skill challenges here, rope climbing, bungee jumping, cliff climbing, all of that kind of stuff, and just run quick athletics and acrobatics tests as they do a ropes course, for example. There's a dungeon simulator that's given, the Lair of the Lizard Lords, and there's a bunch of rules that are given for your party to go here. The caveat here is you have to limit your party's abilities to just what's within the rules, but the fun thing is they have to solve problems. It kind of gives you a tournament format to handle an adventure. So you get a cool little one shot that you can put together. Have to explain the rules to the party, but puts everyone on even ground. Your magic user doesn't have an advantage. Your fighter in this situation, your fighter doesn't have an advantage in that situation. So you're using the rules that are given as part of the simulation to make your players problem solve. So, sticking with the theme park, but giving us the tools to take something familiar and make it uncomfortable and make it enjoyable at the same time. Interesting. Likewise with the Crater Marsh, they have to go in here and try to find the hill giant that's stolen a kid and is going to go eat them. And, same basic premises given for the party, certain rules that can and cannot happen, so on and so forth. This is given in BECME terms, but it's pretty simple. Percentage chances still exist, D100s or percents. That kind of stuff is pretty quick to translate. So yeah, you have Safari Island, Alcove Island, if you're more into boating around. Pirates do have a home here, type of thing. Utter Island, I think, is the potential for a haunted island. The buildings here all have their own spirits. Right here on the right side, Night of the Living Dead companion level. Something goes nuts and the entire island's deads come back to life, including haunted buildings, and the party's got to deal with that. They get in a massive Civil War situation. This is a companion level dungeon that you would have, adventure that you would be guided to set up a little bit. White Island is an island that's off limits. Why is it off limits? It gets into it. There's a druidic cult, not cult, abbey that's sitting here. The 108, they're here to protect some holy animal to them, so it's off limits except for in the most extreme circumstances. Royster Island is a little bit more of but we got 850 people here. It's more of a fishing type of a thing. This is like a native, hate to use the word native, but yeah, the native preserve, the people that are normally lived in Ierendi before the colonists moved in. This is still their private land. So there's some interesting stuff that can be there. Alasius Island is the fancy resort, massage parlor, tan, beaches, all of that kind of stuff. Elegy Island is for a nice green peaceful island with a village port on it, the graveyard, stuff like that, so on and so forth. Each of the islands has, and this is the caveat. The one big difference is Honor Island. This is where you get your quote unquote big bad. This is where you would get your campaign point for the Kingdom of Ierendi. Other than this, it's just a silly theme park. Honor Island, located in the dead middle, is an uninhabited, quote unquote, uninhabitable wasteland. Okay, it's been blasted by repeated volcanic eruptions. Half of the island only exists because it's a lava flow that has gone out and built itself further out. Okay, now Honor Island is absolutely forbidden to anyone. As a matter of fact, it's an independent island. They have their own leadership. They get along with the kingdom, but they're not part of the kingdom. An uneasy alliance. Now they have what are called the armored fire ships, magically powered, big old freaking big ass boats that cruise along and just whoop ass. Honor Island is the center point for the military. It's also the center point for the possible the possible threat. In order to understand that, let me go ahead and pop back up here to these strange maps. See, there's the one city of Philtot. If you are allowed to come into Honor Island, you come in here. Everything else is a guard fort. And the moment you step foot on them, you're met with magical retribution. Mount Kala, you look down on it, you see an observatory and a crater lake. What most people don't realize is the crater lake is just an illusion. The wizards of Mount Kala have penetrated the ethereal plane and connected with the plane of elemental fire, and have actually allowed a pocket of the plane of elemental fire to exist on the prime material plane within this volcano. They have the ultimate goal of harnessing and unifying with the plane of elemental fire and spreading forth from here on Honor Island across the Kingdom of Ierendi, across the rest of Mystara. So this is the power point. This is the big bad, if you will, that's given as part of the Kingdom of Ierendi. Make with it what you will. There are a few mentions of it, of Honor Island and the mages in some of the higher level modules. If you're getting into the Immortal set, and I want to say one of the companion modules as well, refer to Honor Island. But in regards to the GAZ4, it's there for completionist's sake. So, is this a useful book for modern players? That all comes down to if you are using Mystara as a setting or not. If you're using Mystara and you want to be completionist, I have to say, yeah, you have to include the Kingdom of Ierendi if you're being completionist. If you're using Mystara and you want a set of islands for yourself, I would say ignore the Kingdom of Ierendi, because there's really not a whole hell of a lot necessary there. I hate to talk bad about a product. There's less here that's useful to a DM than what it would seem when you first start reading through it. There's some neat ideas. There's some information given about the islands, but there's not enough complete in anything to give you a reason to start a campaign here or keep a campaign going through here. Other than Honor Island, other than the existence of the mage and the volcano that's going to pop up and let the plane of fire flow out across the ocean and take over the rest of the world. You don't need the Kingdom of Ierendi for Honor Island to be there. As a matter of fact, Honor Island sits on its own away from the king. Well, it sits in the middle of it, but it's not attached to the kingdom. I would say so far, out of the 4 that I've presented, in Grand Duchy of Carmakos and Mirza Vularum, and the Principles of Glantry, this one, Kingdom of Ierendi, brings the least to the table in regards to adventure. Okay, it's weird to say that. It brings the most so far in regards to unique ideas. If you're wanting to put your players into tournament type things where their level doesn't matter, their skills don't matter, what they do with the tools at hand, you get some really good ideas to do that. If you want to, add a twist to a campaign, then this is a nice thing to have. But I have a hard time recommending it directly as a, oh my gosh, you really need to do this, get this GAZ4. It's really super cool. It's going to add so much to your campaign. As a completionist, I own it. I've gone through it a couple times, read through it front to back a few times. I don't find a lot that hooks me as a dungeon master for this product at the end of the day. Again, I don't want to say bad about it. All content is good content. I'm a firm believer in that, even if it shows you what not to do. The few good things in here, like I said, it gives you some ideas to run tournaments, how to disarm your party and still let them have an adventure style thing and have fun. Problem solving with their wits rather than their spells or their 2-hit rolls. That's a fun thing there. If you want to be able to add flavor to a tropical region, this is a good source book. Google will do the same thing, but this can give you some information on what the climate's like, what the weather's like, the different beaches, white sand beaches, so on and so forth. A few location names, a few restaurant ideas, things like that. It's like it's an almost, it's almost a great product. It's almost a good product, and there's really good stuff within it, but it's definitely, out of the GAZ4s that I've reviewed so far, this is definitely a pick and choose what you want out of it. If you just want 2 of the islands and make the rest of them uninhabited and call those cities ruined, the existence of the Kingdom of Ierendi, honestly, as a mediocre product at best, probably gives you permission to devastate a lot of these islands and turn them into your own things. Have some fun with it, because otherwise they're very, very densely populated islands. I guess that's the thing that kind of bums me out about it. It's like you got all these cool islands, but there's a city every 40 miles. There's no wildlands left in here. Everything is a theme park now. It's preserve, nature preserve over here, so on and so forth. So just keep that in mind. Overall, decent product. If you're a completionist, the Kingdoms of Ierendi is something you want to add to your repertoire. If you want to add some facets to your naval combat or your naval adventures, there are a few decent tables that are given that you could probably add to your spreadsheet that you could find other places, though. There's not enough non-player characters in here. You get some pictures for like Wirt. You don't get a stat block for him. Who's Hanny? He's not even mentioned in here. So yeah, the non-player character listing is pretty lacking as well, especially on a town. Especially when you double back and you look at the fact that this is supposed to be a resort town, man. It's supposed to be, a lot of interaction. You're stuck with building a lot of non-player characters. That be ready for that. You don't get very many non-player characters in here. The adventure maps themselves are non-existent, which is standard for the GAZ4s. Don't get me wrong. You get 2 little adventure park simulated maps. That's really about it. Some ideas. There's a lot. This is a book full of a lot of good ideas, of a lot of fun concepts, but not enough to really do anything other than pique your interests and give you an idea in which direction to go. This does not bring enough to the table other than the existence of Honor Island to really warrant inclusion in a campaign, in my opinion. If I'm looking for a set of islands to have some fun with, I'm kicking the Kingdom of Ierendi out, and I'm taking those over in with a bunch of ruin. Maybe that's where the lizard tribes and the Yuan-Ti have gotten on. They're about to go take over the world. Something like that. So, but yeah, ultimately, I'm going to finish this video up. DMGeezerjim here. Just finishing out a GAZ4 Kingdom of Ierendi. A look at the Mystara series Gazetteer. Not one of the best ones I've seen so far. Interesting ideas. But it does help flesh out this wonderful world. If you're a BECME player, OSL, old school rules, old school whatever, or if you're a 5th edition player looking for somewhere new, or any edition in between, I do tell you, I would suggest go take a look at Mystara. It's a well-developed world. It's kind of set deep in your old school fantasy tropes, but it's there's a lot of information out there for you, and you can turn this into your own campaign world relatively easy with a lot of external support. So thanks for joining me for this video on the Mystara. We'll pick up next with, I think, the Kingdom of Elves of Alfheim. GAZ5 will be the next, and we'll take a nice long look at elves in context of BECME and the Mystara world. But until then, whether you've been here for a few minutes, whether you caught me for the whole video, thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I'm sitting over on Twitch TV running live chats every day, Monday through Friday during lunchtime. Feel free to catch me over there on DMGeezerjim. Would love like, follow, some subscribes everywhere. Facebook, find me there as well. DMGeezerjim. Just talk more about D&D articles here and there. But yeah, above all else, thank you for your time and have a good day.